Tesla's stock today was just getting hammered, just getting beat up, just getting knocked out of the box. Hey, I'm stock market coach and option trader Jason Brown, and I want to look at the Tesla stock today. So unless you've been living underneath a rock, you know that Tesla stock has been getting hammered. But why was it getting hammered, and what has been happening before the whole Q3 delivery miss? So let's take a look at the article, and let's take a look at what some of the analysts are saying is the reason for the sell-off. But I want to dive deeper than the basic knowledge of, yeah, they just missed Q3 deliveries. So if you take a look at this, you can see that Tesla was falling pre-market because they missed expectations. And then you got JP Morgan who's saying, like, look, we're still bearish on Tesla. We remain wary on our valuation and continue to see large downside. Here's the thing though, I hate when companies or analysts say we continue to see large downside, but they don't really back it up and tell why. This is including on the potential for multiple compression amidst rising competition and less distinction versus traditional automakers over time. I mean, really, just because it's less distinction? How about they're just killing it in the electrical vehicle category? Other than that, I guess all cars have 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and a couple of doors, right? So I don't know what I feel about that. But let's go to the next article from CBS Market Watch. It says Tesla stock was getting hammered on weaker than expected third quarter delivery numbers. Now, here's the kicker. How weak is weak? And so if we go down here, you can see the production units were 343,000 and 365,000 some change respectively. But Wall Street was looking for about 358,000 units to be delivered. So basically, according to this, it looks like Tesla fell short by about 14,000 or 15,000 units. And here's the thing, that's the biggest miss relative to the expectations in quite some time. So before we look at the stock chart, what do we make of this? So I want you to think about this. If you were supposed to, let's do some calculations real quick. If you were supposed to sell $14,000 to $15,000 vehicles, we'll take 14,000. Let's just say at an average price of $60,000 a vehicle. That's about $840 million that you just missed on in the quarter of revenue that was supposed to be coming in. So that pretty much tells you most likely why the stock is tanking. But the real question is there something going on behind the Q3 delivery miss and something much bigger going on? One of the things I want you to think about is, number one, Tesla has raised their prices on some of their models, particularly I think the extended battery range. So that's number one. You got rising prices, and then you also have rising interest rates. Now, if you haven't been following what's going on with interest rates, you got to think about it like this. If the cost of the car just got more expensive, as well as most people don't just pay cash for a car, the cost of financing the car has also just gotten more expensive. You have to wonder if consumers are starting to pull it back and say, do I really need an electric vehicle right now, or do I really need that vehicle right now? And do I need that model right this moment, or should I wait? Especially with all the talk and fears of a recession, some people are really pausing and holding out on making big purchases, and that could be what's showing up in Tesla stock. Now, let's take a look at the stock chart and talk about what's been going on before the delivery numbers, because I think you're going to find something pretty interesting with the technical analysis. So if we look at the chart of Tesla, there's something pretty interesting that was going on back here. And if you look, this was before the stock split. You can see the stock had this kind of triple top. You see this? If you don't know what a triple top is, it's basically where the stock ran up, hit its head and turned over, ran up again, hit its head, turned over, ran up again, hit its head, turned over. I guess you could say it's a quadruple top, right? Because it was the fourth time it ran up, hit its head, and it turned over. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, a quadruple. That's not a real word, but we just made that up. A quadruple top. Well, pay attention to what has gone on recently. See, they missed the delivery numbers, but what was going on even before that? Notice, we technically have a run up here, hit his head, turned over, a run up here, hit his head, turned over. Technically, we have another quadruple top because if you look, we ran up here, hit our head, turned over. We ran up again, hit our head, turned over. So technically you got 1, 2, 3, 4 times where the exact same story played out where Tesla ran up to this resistance level and then started to sell off. Now, what do you do with that information? Is that all bad news? No, it's not all bad news. But if you were paying attention to the technicals would have told you, hey, here's the time to potentially sell and get out and take profit. But the same way the technicals told you there's a time to potentially get out, let's talk about, is it time to potentially buy Tesla? So let's go back to the technicals and look at what happened before. When this stock sold off, you kind of had this triple bottom here. You can see it right here. We kind of boom, bounce. You know what? Let's go with a different color. Stock came down, boom, bounce, turn. Stock came down, broke, bounce, turn. Stock came down, broke, bounce, turn. Now, what's interesting about that, if you look over here as well, you really get the sense that the same triple bottom has happened over here. Stock came down, bounce, sold. Stock came down, bounce, sold. In fact, me and the members, we were buying Tesla stock all throughout this area right here. And a bunch of people made a killing off this triple bottom that we saw here. And then Tesla finally took off to the races. Now, if history is going to repeat itself, which it may not, it doesn't always do that, but we like to use the technicals as a basis of where we think the stock can go. And so when you look at the basis of where the stock can go, number one, we don't have a bottom yet in Tesla. So if we extrapolate this out straight across, you can see that Tesla has a little bit more farther to fall because this was the fall due to the Q3 delivery miss. And you can see Tesla could potentially come down here to support to the 220 area and find itself at support. And then if it does find itself at support, we're going to be looking for 1, 2, 3 potential bounces. 1, 2, 3 potential bounces. Right now, we don't even have one bounce yet. In fact, we're not even down here to support yet. And so I think you got to be patient on Tesla. Although you may want to rush into it and be like, it's on sale, it's for a good deal. There's a saying in the trading or investing industry that you never want to catch a falling knife. And right now you're holding your hand out and the knife is falling. And guess what happens when you hold your hand out and try to catch a falling knife? Well, blood is shed, ladies and gentlemen. And so that's what's happening with the stock. Blood is being shed. You don't want to jump in front of that knife because take a look at this. I want you to understand what's really happening here. Take a look at this knife. Let's just say you tried to catch this falling knife and like, it's time to buy Tesla here. Well, you got cut. And let's say you tried to buy that bounce, well, you got cut. And what if you're like, but it's done now? And you tried to buy it here. Well, you got cut again. And that's what I'm talking about by not trying to catch a fallen knife. I don't want you to get cut. I don't want you bleeding all over your keyboard. I don't want you discouraged about your investing. So here's what I think we do. I think we wait and see if Tesla can come down here to about the 215 area. Then we want to see if we get a bounce or some type of bullish action. Now, once we get that bullish action, the stock may go up, down, for a couple of sessions, right? Up, down, and eventually make its way back up. But until we get that, what we like to call in Power Trades University, that predictable, repeatable pattern, I think you got to stay clear of the stock just for now, not long term, but just enough for it to come down maybe about 30 more points, hit that support level around 215, look for a bounce, and then I think we could put some capital to work in Tesla, but don't expect it to just shoot straight back up to the top. Last 2 times that I got down to this area, we chopped around there for at least 2 to 3 cycles. So that's what I'm going to be expecting from the stock. Keep in mind, electric cars are the future, but because they're the future, that also means that there's going to be more competition for Tesla, which, there's enough room for everybody to play in the sandbox, but eventually, how much market share can they capture? But then you look on the other side and say, well, they still got the Cybertruck that can come out. They also could at some point venture into motorcycles? What if Tesla ventures into boats and start to make electric boats? So there's a ton of like runway for Tesla to move and go into far beyond the car. But for now, they got to get the deliveries under wraps with the current models, as well as eventually release the Cybertruck so they can even sell it. That would increase delivery numbers. Plus, they're working on one of the most technological savvy 18-wheelers out there for people who drive trucks on the road. And I think that's going to get a bottom line a boost. But until we get there, till these products get released, I think you got to stay clear of the stock until we pull it back about 20 to 30 bucks. And then I think we can start investing both short term and long term. Let me know in the comments, is Tesla a buy right now? Do you own some shares? Were you thinking about selling it? Or if you don't own some, is now the time to jump in? I gave you the technicals. Now I want to hear what you think in the comments. Let me know. I'll see you on the next video.